Mark Williams, I very much enjoyed watching
Yeah.
last year. Sort of the twofold question with him. And first, we'll start here. What impressed you or maybe surprised you the most about him as
His
a
foot
rookie?
speed. His foot speed. Because I think
Yeah.
me and you had this conversation last year where I was significantly concerned about him on the pick and roll and him being the mark that everybody was going to target. He went to Greensboro. They worked with him. The big thing about Mark Williams, and it's one of those things that I will continually harp on, the development staff in Charlotte when it comes to Nick Friedman and the Greensboro Swarm, they do a great job of translating what you need to do from getting in the G League, what's sustainable, what's not. We need to get you this work. Because when Mark Williams was ready to go, he was ready to go. He is going to start. And quite honestly, like I said, the foot speed was there. The defensive IQ was a lot better than I thought it would ever be. And the fact that, like, he was, because again, I was a Doran guy. I think we talked about this. I was a Doran guy. I was hardcore Doran guy. I was stoked that we got him. And then when they traded him, I was very, very upset. Now, granted, that pick turned into Nick Smith Jr., who we'll talk about later. But I was really, and I understood what Mitch and I think Cliff were thinking about with this, which was, we need positional length. We need a big guy that can move his feet. We need a deep guy with defensive IQ, because if you've seen the Hornets for longer than maybe 48 minutes, you already know the defensive IQ was lacking on this team and has been lacking since Marvin Williams left the building. So therefore, you needed that guy, and the only thing that you were worried about was athleticism. He covered up those athletic things. And I think if you look at him in the mold of a Brook Lopez, it works so well.
The way that they got him to turn his body and how he was moving his feet from there on defense, we had talked about, I thought he was too slow. I remember when we were talking last year. So that really impressed me. Even the little floater he would bust out, or having testing out the mid-range, what are you watching aside from the you said he had hand surgery, I think it was, or finger surgery this offseason? Just aside from that, what are you going to be watching from him most in year two? Like, what fascinates you the most?
I want to see if he develops that three, because there were rumblings that they were going to try and develop that three. If he develops a three, this unlocks everything, because now you can play 5 out. And you saw the mid range. The mid range was kind of solid.
I bought into it. I'm sold.
So if he develops that three, and granted, the rumors with Hornet centers developing threes, because Lord knows, everyone was telling me Cody Zeller would hit the three, would be able to hit a three, this, that, and the third. If Mark Williams hits a three, we're talking about Brook Lopez 2.0. And that kind of building block at 15, at the 15th pick in the draft, is something that, when you talk about Mitch Kupchak and his legacy as the GM here, you're going to have to bring up the fact that he found all these gems in the late lottery and beyond.
I'm actually, this might be too nerdy, but there's two things I'm watching with him. And we're talking about the foot speed. The way that they have him turning his body right now, it makes it tougher for him to cover both ends of the pick and roll, when he's not playing straight up. So, and I do think that hurt his rim protection numbers a little bit. They kind of evened out towards the end when he started playing a bigger role. But I'm watching that. So I'd be curious your thoughts on that. And the second thing is, I think when he's making catches on after slipping screens or on those short rolls, I want to see, especially now that he should have more shooting around him, if that shot isn't immediately available, can he make the decision of, is there a one dribble decision there? Or what I'm more fascinated by, hey, can I hit the guy in the corner? Can I hit the guy on the behind the arc? And that's, I don't know what the word is. I'm very curious to see if we can see
his decision making. His one bounce decision making. Yeah, I get that one. The funny thing is, I'm not worried about that part. That part, him offensively, I am not worried about. Defensively, I would also like to say I'm not really that worried about, because the people that are going to get him right, Steve Clifford, Ty Corbin, they are really good at what they do in terms of getting defenders right. We saw Dennis Smith Jr. turn into a defensive dog under Steve Clifford. Like, Cliff in defense is the one thing I do not worry about with this team. This team was actually one of the better defensive teams. Granted, how much of that you take seriously after the All-Star break, because we know they don't really try after the All-Star. Folks don't really try. But the fact that they were top 10 in defense post All-Star break, I think that part kind of matters. So I'm not necessarily worried about the defensive aspects, because I think a lot of that coaching defensively was done on the fly. And I think with a full offseason, I think there are going to be a lot more wrinkles to Mark Williams' game, especially on defense.
I can't believe it took us this long to get here, but the response to the LaMelo extension was actually a little bit more divisive than I thought.
I don't understand that one, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to just ask you what were your impressions on the reaction to the LaMelo extension, not the LaMelo extension, which I look at as a straight max, all NBA language like normal.
Yeah.
And no player options. I viewed that as an organizational win.
That is like, that's the thing. It's a win. There's no player options. It becomes a question of how long does it become before LaMelo gets tired and he asks out. He's going to get his money regardless. They're going to get the player regardless. It's a 2.5-year deal, I think. And I think, and also, again, like I said, I think part of this is tied to not drafting his potential replacement in Scoot Henderson. You make the guy happy. He doesn't want to take any options. He's very, very happy here for right now. You take that and you run. And I do believe that a lot of this, like, I get the slings and arrows at Mitch Kupchak for a lot of these things. I also would probably caution that he's working with one hand tied behind his back, because the previous owner would like to meddle and dip in and dip out every now and again and get his guys, especially when you start reading reports of wanting to offer guys like Montrezl Harrell big money for little prices, and then eventually Montrezl Harrell shows up and doesn't do much here. So I would just say this. The LaMelo thing is a win, and anyone that tries to basically spin it as anything else, I'm kind of laughing at you right now, and I'm laughing very, very hard.
Brian Windhorst calls this the fun max, and I think I would just agree with. And it's like what you had said is, I think what you essentially did is you bought yourself an extra year here before you had to make a decision, because you can say 2.5 years, but like everything is now moved to, if they have 2 years left on their deal, like 2 guaranteed years, they have leverage. And so by not having that player option, you've ensured, hey, we have 4 more years of LaMelo technically, because he still has the 1 year left on his rookie scale. Before, if we're willing for things to get awkward or not just acquiesce, 4 years to figure it out. That's a critical amount of time.
Exactly. Like, he can't he can bang the table and say, I want out, but the Hornets don't necessarily have to acquiesce, like you said.
Damian Lillard's finding that out right now.
Exactly. Like, literally, they're going to get a decent amount of value for whenever he wants out, if he wants out, unless they build something significant here. And I believe they are to a point. I do think that this organization has done some dumb things. Mitch Kupchak is not a dumb man. He just, on occasion, over believes in his talent. And that's not, if that's the worst thing he does, I can't really be mad at him.
What last year when we spoke and LaMelo barely plays, dealing with all those injuries, you were going to be monitoring sort of his strength and finishing around the basket. Is that the biggest thing you're watching as he goes into year 4?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, he became the best scorer he on a scoring level in those 30 games that he played. He was a much, much better scorer. And I'm kind of like, I know Matt Moore did the whole thing on the top 100 players, and he put him at 84. And I wasn't going to fight it, because quite honestly, the Hornets hadn't done enough to where it was worth defending. So, but if LaMelo comes out with a decent amount of strength and stays healthy, he's going to remind a lot of people about exactly how good he is. I believe in the kid. I just want to see him get some better footwear. That's just me. And I understand he's got the Puma thing. I just want him to have decent sneakers, have decent footwear, and play 60, 70 games. because he's been so snake bit with these injuries that are not his fault that like I just want to see him play 70 games. Just give me 70 games and then we'll see where we're at after that.
I think, and just to stray away, like I think that's the biggest thing for him, and also the strength thing. I really do believe would allow him to do more defensively, and I understand how they use him now. Part of that goes into it is the load he carries on offense. He's not very strong. You also want him to be in position to go after defensive rebounds, so you get your possession started. But I look at him, and just based off what we've seen, even though they don't have him like gambling a ton and shooting gaps, he can be so disruptive. If he's a little bit stronger, I feel like this is someone who can actually like make a meaningful on ball defensive impact is what I'm getting at.
I do think that's possible. I do think that's possible. I just think that we're a while from that. It's also like that's one of those areas that I would not be surprised if it changes organizationally, where the strength training, whatever the new staff looks like, I would not be surprised if there is a true NBA caliber strength training program here, because I think that's been a critical concern. If you start thinking about going back to hell, even Malik Monk, like guys that have struggled to put on weight here in Charlotte and have flourished elsewhere with as they get older with proper strength training programs. I do think that's something that I expect to change as we go forward in the Block and Schnall era.